There are none who can stand before me! I will fight all and stand victorious!
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Night Owl channel. Welcome back to this series where we're counting down the top Dynasty Warriors characters out of the latest game. Coming in at number 6, we have one of the most iconic warriors of this franchise, the strongest warrior of his time, the demon of the Hulao Gate, Lu Bu. Lu Bu is a general of the late Han Dynasty who is infamous for his many betrayals in the Central Plains, and like many warlords of the era, he attempted to establish himself as an independent power before he met his end against Cao Cao's forces. Romance of the Three Kingdoms famously dubs him to be the mightiest warrior of his time, though both versions of him were equally known for his fickle personality and his lacking forte in tactics. His trademarks within the Dynasty Warriors series are his high stats, his vastly superior moveset, his unique horse, and his theme song, which doubles as the musical motif for several of the game's opening sequences. The exclamation "Do not pursue Lu Bu" is fondly remembered by his fans, and he sometimes shares the spotlight with the series' other iconic character, Zhao Yun, and his daughter is Lu Lingqi. Before we jump into how the Demon of the Hulao Gate has changed since its playable debut back in the first Dynasty Warriors games, let's take a look at the popularity poll to see why Lu Bu's all the way up here at number 6. In the first popularity poll, let me introduce you to the number 1 character for the first popularity poll, Lu Bu, reigning in almost 3,000 votes out of a total of over 75,000 votes, putting him in the very first position in the very first poll. In the second popularity poll, he's going to drop down to the 33rd position, and then in my personal rankings, he's going to jump back up to break the top 10 at number 7. So Lu Bu coming in number 1 in that first popularity poll, and then he is top 10 for me. And for me, it's pretty simple. The character is an iconic character. His moveset is amazing. Weapon style is great. The way he looks is awesome. The presence that he represents within the games can't be overlooked. I mean, this character, when he makes an appearance, when he arrives at the stage of Hulao Gate, it is another level of intimidation, because when this character appears, even on the easiest of levels, you have to be cautious when fighting against this character because he is so strong. The games famously tell you to not pursue this character because of how strong he is, and just because of how iconic this character is and because of the impact that he's had on the series, he's obviously going to be one of my top 10 characters. I also want to note that his story mode in Dynasty Warriors 6 was awesome. He has probably, in my opinion, the best battle in all of the Dynasty Warriors games. You're at the final battle of the Hulao Gate. You're going against all the other factions within the land at that time. It's really cool to see, you know, you're going to battle and there's like every famous warlord and their officers attacking you all at once, and it's just a slaughter fest of hack and slash. It's my favorite stage in all of the Dynasty Warriors games. The way Lu Bu's story kind of navigates in Dynasty Warriors 6 is so addicting. It's just a really interesting story, seeing how he would go about it. And with that being said, we're going to dive right into who Lu Bu is for people who don't know, because I want to talk about his personality a little bit because it goes with his story in Dynasty Warriors 6, and then we're going to talk about all of his changes within the game. So diving right into his personality, so Lu Bu is known to be this brutish, extremely aggressive, and bloodthirsty warrior who fights for the sole purpose of finding an opponent capable of providing him with a challenge.
And anybody provides me with a decent challenge.
He believes himself to be the mightiest man alive and believes that the only true justice in the world is not found in any court, but when one fights for one's life on the battlefield where the strong survive and the weak are crushed. More of a man of action than talk, he disregards strategy and politics as a waste of his time. So I want to talk about his personality a little bit because it's very obvious how brutish this character can be, but when you see instances of him interacting with his daughter or Diao Chan, or even when he's fighting in the final battle in his story mode and you see the final cutscene for his story mode, he still has a level of respect, understanding, even a little bit of benevolence with certain characters. For example, like I already mentioned, his daughter, Diao Chan, and even Zhang Liao, he has a sort of respect for these certain characters and understanding to where it balances out that brutish, aggressive behavior that he was really known to be in the earlier games. As he progresses through the series, you can still see that brutish behavior in his awesome cutscenes when he arrives at Hulao Gate and he's flinging people all over the place. However, within his interactions with some of the characters within the game, you can really see the levels that this character actually has. He's not a one-note character where he's just this extremely aggressive brute, but he has moments of actual, you know, intelligence and understanding, compassion. That's where I really like the character, because I don't really like the whole just being broody and aggressive and extremely hostile or whatever it is because you believe to be the strongest person within your time. I wouldn't really subscribe to that kind of personality, but because Lu Bu has a little bit of those layers, it's really interesting to see, and that's why his story mode in Dynasty Warriors 6 was so interesting to me, because you get to see those moments where he's talking with Diao Chan or when he's acknowledging Zhang Liao. So like I said, Lu Bu is one of the most iconic characters in this game, and it's rightfully so. His entrances in every single game is absolutely legendary. When he's included in the openings of the games, absolutely legendary, and you can see that the games really take the time to portray this character as the strongest character within the game. Just him showing up and people seeing him, they have that instant fear and instant flight reaction of leaving. They want to get out of there. They want to get away from Lu Bu. Even if you're playing on easy, it is not a character to underestimate. Now in Dynasty Warriors 9, they don't do him a really good service because of the new battling system and everything like that. Very easy to defeat him in Dynasty Warriors 9. Not even a challenge at all, but every previous game, he is a challenge. You have to be careful fighting this character because even on easy, you could easily be killed by this character because he is so strong. Now within history, Lu Bu has a shorter story. He doesn't go as far as his hypothetical in Dynasty Warriors 6 because he usually ends up getting killed pretty early within the story by Cao Cao's forces at the Battle of Xiapi. We'll dive deeper into that, into the significant battle portion. With that being said, let's go ahead and cover the changes on how Lu Bu has changed within the game, and then we'll talk about his battles, his relationships, and how he dies in more detail towards the latter part of the video. So starting off with Lu Bu's appearance, his appearance within most of the games is actually pretty good. My favorite is probably Dynasty Warriors 6 and Dynasty Warriors 9. Earlier game appearances are really good too. I think Dynasty Warriors 6, maybe because I'm so attached to his story and just the way things unfolded in that game, he had such a commanding presence with that look. For me, it's always going to be one of my favorites. And then in Dynasty Warriors 9, I think he looks really good. The gold-plated armor, he just looks like a very intimidating and has that presence again that Lu Bu has really been developed to be in all the Dynasty Warriors games. So I can't complain about the way he looks. He's one of the most intimidating and nerve-wracking characters to go against. His name alone is enough to make a player go, okay, let me sit up in my chair, let me make sure I don't die here. And I pretty much like all of his looks. I just think Dynasty Warriors 6 is the best for me personally. Now moving on to his weapon style. So Lu Bu has one of the most superior movesets within the games, like I already mentioned. His weapon style, especially in the earlier games, was ridiculously overpowering. This is why it was so hard to fight him. One, he didn't flinch. So you hit him and he just goes right through you and keeps hitting you. So he doesn't flinch. He's got a wide AoE attack because he has the halberd in pretty much all the games except for Dynasty Warriors 6. The halberd's range is ridiculously big, and his second charge attack in pretty much all the games, like I believe Dynasty Warriors 4 and up, I want to say, the one where he swings it around and then he comes down, a little pocket of energy comes out and does like a big, that move, just spamming that move alone, you could clear pretty much any stage on the hardest difficulty, no problem. You didn't even really need any of his other moves. In Dynasty Warriors 3, his first charge attack was a huge AoE, just a huge pocket of energy that comes out and clears out all the enemies around you. He was a very overpowering character when you played with him, and he was even stronger when you went against him. His halberd moveset is so iconic, and it just was a lot of fun to play with. None of the characters really had a style like that, and it was just so overwhelming to go against, and it was just so fun to play with. And then in Dynasty Warriors 7, 8, and 9, they just took that previous moveset and they just beefed it up even more. So now the second charge attack, instead of coming down with an AoE or just an AoE, he now has a grappling move where he picks them up by their face and kind of just choke slams them into the ground. Huge AoE, crazy amounts of power and damage, and then his fourth and fifth charge attacks got a beefier AoE attack as well. He's just a really fun style to play, and I would say just because of the way he's been presented within the games, that makes people more eager to play as this character, because when you unlock him, you're like, oh, I get a chance to play as this character now. That makes it more intriguing, it makes it more fun, because now the user gets to use the character that was so hard to beat. In Dynasty Warriors 6, he gets the cross spear or the cross pike, whatever you want to call it, but this weapon style was super fun to play with. It was just so interesting. It was very different. It was super unique, and it fit Lu Bu, at least for that game, so well. Anything that he said, all the poses that he made within that game, along with that weapon style, was just another level of intimidation and another level of power for this character. He was just on another level with the weapon. I wouldn't say it's better than the halberd. I think the halberd really fits for the character, but the weapon was still so fun to play with. The Musou attacks in all the games was pretty good. The earlier games, it was good. They beefed it up in Dynasty Warriors 5 when they gave the ending to the Musou a little bit of AoE, so that was nice. Dynasty Warriors 6 was good too. I like the build up to the, the end part where he kind of just boomerangs it around himself. And then Dynasty Warriors 7, 8, and 9, they weren't as long, but they were extremely powerful. Like Dynasty Warriors 8, it was so powerful, and the way they presented, the way he like cocks back his weapon, he activates that little the red lightning, and then he comes down, explosion of damage. I had a lot more fun with his like charge attacks and the basic attacks versus his Musous. It was just a very overwhelming presence. He didn't even need Musou attacks with the moveset that he had, because it was so overwhelming, and it just got more and more powerful as the games went on. Can't complain about his weapon style too much. I'm sure a lot of people love his weapon style. It's one of the most iconic weapons in the game. It's one of the most iconic movesets within the game, I think. Now moving on to his voice acting. Alright, so voice acting. Dynasty Warriors 3 and 4.
You dare stand in my way, you pitiful worm.
You dare face the mighty Lu Bu?
Like Dynasty Warriors 3 was a little bit better because they go, I wouldn't say softer in Dynasty Warriors 4, but definitely higher pitch. It still fit though. You can still hear that rumbling, that aggressiveness that Lu Bu is really known for. Dynasty Warriors 5 through 8, he gets the same voice actor. It is hands down the best one.
Don't shed tears because of them. If those fools will not listen to your words, then they will listen to my spear.
Every voice line, everything that Lu Bu says with this voice actor just fits so perfectly, because he really comes across as that aggressive, brutish character when Lu Bu speaks. And even when he had to balance it out when the character is talking to Diao Chan or Zhang Liao, or he's not angry or anything like that, it still fit the character. He still has that dark presence about him. Just his voice alone is enough to make you think twice about fighting that character. Unfortunately, Dynasty Warriors 9, I know it was lacking.
Our oath? Ah, don't make me laugh.
It just did not fit him very well. He sounds so sophisticated, and I'm not trying to say that Lu Bu is dumb, because he does have intelligent moments, but he sounds really sophisticated, and almost all the aggressiveness with the character, voice-wise, is gone. All the cutscenes where he's fighting and he's dominating people and just completely destroying people looks absolutely great. It definitely fits the character. That's why I said his appearance looks great. His appearance looks great, his fights look great. When he's not talking, he looks great. But when he begins to talk, it comes across like flat as a character. It's just not very compelling, and it's just not what we know Lu Bu to be. It's just hard to really take Lu Bu seriously in Dynasty Warriors 9 with the way he sounds, but overall The voice acting for him is really, really good. Now, moving on to his significant battles, his relationships, and his death. So we're going to start off with his battles. So first we're going to start off with the Battle of Hulao Gate. The most significant battle for Lu Bu, because this is where, you know, Lu Bu becomes pretty much Lu Bu in this game. I mean, he's arriving at the Battle of Hulao Gate. He's got a cutscene in pretty much every game for the Battle of Hulao Gate. Ends up dubbing him the nickname the Demon of the Hulao Gate because this guy is hard to get by. You either run past him or you find a way to go around him, or if you're brave enough, you fight him. Either way, this battle is a significant and iconic moment for Lu Bu because this is the battle that sets the stage for why Lu Bu is such an iconic character. Like I said, they kind of took the intimidation and that presence. That factor kind of went away in Dynasty Warriors 9 because of the battle system. He still looks great, and the cutscene for that game is awesome. But when you fight him, there's not that. I don't have the same sense of fear when I'm fighting him versus in all the other games. In all the other games when I'm fighting him, it is scary, man. You make the wrong move, or you don't move out of the way in time, or you don't block the right way, or even when you block and he goes through your block and your heart jumps through your chest because he's about to hit you, it's a different feeling. And that battle really signifies and cemented Lu Bu as a legend during this time. Now moving on to the assassination of Dong Zhuo. It's a very important event for Lu Bu, and I'm just going to talk about his relationship with Dong Zhuo as well, but he didn't like the fact that he was quote-unquote Dong Zhuo's lackey. Dong Zhuo kind of just used his strength and his presence to keep people in check because Lu Bu was so feared at that time. You couldn't really just approach Dong Zhuo and say what you want or try to kill him or anything because Lu Bu was always around. So Lu Bu considered Dong Zhuo an arrogant pig and a repulsive coward who was undeserving of his wealth and status, and he only joined him because of the opportunity to fight all the enemies that Dong Zhuo makes. That's why I want to talk about the Battle of Hulao Gate, the final Battle of Hulao Gate in Dynasty Warriors 6. It was awesome because you get to play as Lu Bu and fight everyone at once. You're surrounded by like 15 officers and you're just swinging and fighting as many as you can. It's so much fun. It's one of the best stages in the game. But going back to Dong Zhuo's assassination, so his hatred for Dong Zhuo was further inflamed when Diao Chan would advise him to kill Dong Zhuo. So within the games, it's Diao Qian's plot, or like her father's plot, to persuade Lu Bu to kill Dong Zhuo, and that's why he ends up doing it. And then he gets driven out of the capital by some of Dong Zhuo's followers, and then he ends up wandering the land for a while. Leading on to the Battle of Xiapi. Before the Battle of Xiapi, Lu Bu was wandering the land looking for places to stay. So the Battle of Xiapi was a battle between Lu Bu and the combined forces of Cao Cao and Liu Bei. Sometimes Yuan Shu comes to help Lu Bu, but this is a very important battle for Lu Bu because this is where Lu Bu actually dies. This is the battle where you kill Lu Bu. Now, in all the games, I would say this is the battle where it's actually easier to kill Lu Bu. It's still hard. Like Dynasty Warriors 4, I was fighting Lu Bu at Xiapi on easy, and I was getting wrecked. I was like, this is Xiapi. It's not even Hulao Gate. He's the commander. I have to beat him in order to go on to the next stage, and it was still so difficult to kill this character. But anyway, he ends up at the Battle of Xiapi Castle. He's surrounded by Cao Cao's forces, and they ended up flooding the castle. So he was surrounded, the flood attack happens, people are defecting, people end up getting captured, and then it's pretty much Lu Bu by himself, and he ends up getting captured as well. So Lu Bu is brought with Zhang Liao and Chen Gong and a couple of his officers before Cao Cao to determine what they're going to do with him. So within the games, and I believe within history as well, Lu Bu offers his services to Cao Cao. However, Cao Cao usually errs on the side of caution or decides to kill Lu Bu outright just because he knows how untrustworthy he is. Or even in Dynasty Warriors 9, I believe Cao Cao turns around to consider it. Liu Bei steps in. I believe within history this happens as well. Liu Bei steps in and says, you can't trust Lu Bu. Look, why are we in this battle in the first place? This was my territory, and he ended up betraying me. Look at his records of betrayal. He's just going to do the same thing to you, and that ends up to Lu Bu being executed. But yeah, very important battle for Lu Bu because, again, up until that point, you know, he was just looking for a place to establish his power. He thought he found it, biting off a little bit more than he could chew. He ends up getting beat by Cao Cao's strategy, which ends up in Lu Bu's death. Now, for the last part of the video, we're going to talk about the rest of Lu Bu's relationships. We're going to start off with Diao Chan. So Lu Bu and Diao Chan, someone he definitely treasures very, very much. If Lu Bu has any weakness in the game, it's definitely his absent-minded devotion for the woman he loves in Diao Chan. Diao Chan is everything to him, and he is always willing to do whatever she wants. He rarely suspects or accuses her of any sort of deception, despite to her admitting it. Now, there are instances within the game where Lu Bu, I think he catches on because like Diao Chan will say something, Lu Bu's just like, it's cool, like I get it. And of course, in some of the games, should his lover come to any harm, he instantly flies into a rage and becomes almost unstoppable. So a very close relationship with Diao Chan. This is his closest relationship, his most significant one. It's really why he does what he does, at least within the game. So a very significant relationship there. Now moving on to his relationship with Zhang Liao. And I would say that this is probably the closest thing he has to a friend in the series. He treats him with more respect than any of the other soldiers in his army, and he has barely berated him for any of his actions in the open. Even when Zhang Liao once insisted on joining Lu Bu in a battle that he wanted to fight alone, you know, Lu Bu was just like, he just acknowledged his speech and he was like, yeah, it was a good speech, let's go. You know, it's a very mutual respect kind of thing. I wouldn't say Lu Bu gives respect to anybody, but he does to Zhang Liao. He recognizes him as a warrior of skill and talent, and I don't know if Zhang Liao registers that, but just to have that quote-unquote honor from Lu Bu to be recognized as a talented warrior from pretty much the greatest warrior within the series, I think that's really cool, and that's why Zhang Liao is able to be a part of Lu Bu's army up until the end. But I would say Zhang Liao and Lu Bu share that similarity of having that excitement of going to battle against worthy opponents. So very close relationship for Lu Bu. Now moving on to his relationship with Chen Gong. It's definitely a friendly one. Sometimes it's strained because, you know, these two definitely bicker about what is the best move to make, and perhaps if Lu Bu was more open to Chen Gong's suggestion, perhaps Lu Bu's story would have gotten a lot farther than it did. But because of Lu Bu's stubbornness and the way, you know, he wants to do things, it does end up with him and Chen Gong butting heads a lot. But I would say the relationship was a decent relationship, strained at times, but it was definitely a good one. And I would say Lu Bu tolerated Chen Gong to a point where he didn't mind him following him and providing strategies when Lu Bu was willing to hear what he had to say. Now moving on to his last relationship with his daughter, Lu Lingqi. So this is a very limited interaction with these two because she's only really in one main series game. But it's really cool to see that Lu Bu has this different attitude when it comes to dealing with his daughter. He shows a surprising degree of paternal concern rather than his usual ruthlessness. So Lu Bu has this concern for another character that is beyond himself, and I would say it's almost at the same level as Diao Chan, because Lu Bu, when he's talking with Lu Lingqi, he's very different. Not as brutish and aggressive. He's very concerning. He's very like a father would normally be, and it's just interesting to see that dynamic with the character. I really hope they expand on that story because there's a lot that could be unpacked there, and a lot could be really developed with their relationship. And it's just really cool to see Lu Bu cares very deeply about his daughter, which I'm sure she likes very much. However, because of this concern, Lu Lingqi has a determination to prove to her father that she is just as capable as him or Zhang Liao to be on the battlefield with him to provide value to his campaigns. But very interesting relationship. Hopefully they expand a little bit more on that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I really have for the Flying General. Lu Bu here, one of the most iconic characters within the game. I wasn't surprised to see him up here at the top 10, and I wasn't surprised to see him at number 1 in the first poll. It's no shock to see why. He plays a big part, you know, in the early parts of the games, and he has such a impactful moment. He's the guy that, you know, the games tell you not to pursue. You know, don't pursue Lu Bu. Find a way to get around him. Don't fight him. And, you know, some people are curious and they're like, oh, I wonder what happens when I fight him. And they end up dying, and they try again, and you try again until you end up beating him. And then, you know, you feel pretty great because you defeat one of the greatest warriors within the game, and you end up getting his horse or his weapon or whatever it is. But yeah, Lu Bu, one of the most exciting and iconic characters in the game. I really like when they expand on his hypotheticals. For me, Dynasty Warriors 6, his story mode was one of the best within the game. I just love playing through it. Again, that final Hulao battle with him against everybody, just amazing, so much fun. And he's always going to be a very iconic character to the series because of what he represents to this game and to the series. But yeah, that's all I have for the character, guys. He's one of my favorites. He's always going to be a top 10 for me. I love his halberd, love his moveset. Let me know what you guys think about him down below. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Lu Bu fans down below, so let me know what you guys think about him. If you guys enjoyed the video, I definitely appreciate a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone.